family? I wanted to come on here and do a question and answer video because I get a lot of questions and people ask me the same questions a lot of times over and over and over. So I'm gonna just air a few things out real quick. First thing, a lot of people ask me about travel cards. Do we do travel cards? Well, we do nationality cards at Moorish American National Fairs, and me and a few of the other Moors I work with, we're under the impression that a nationality card and a travel card is essentially the same thing because you really don't need more than one ID that's universal. You don't need an additional ID just to travel. I mean, and I'll give you an example, and it's not the best example, but the state, you know, they'll issue you, a driver's license that they say is good for traveling too, or good for identification too. So, it's an all-in-one document, and that was essentially what we did when we came up with the nationality card, in the form that we use, So we use it to travel. So, you know, I don't feel a need for an additional travel card. And in fact, I've been stopped, a few times, but only a few times because since those few times, it seems like, it's been such a deterrent that they don't even bother me no more. And, it's nothing that I can really prove. Like, it's nothing that I have tangible evidence to show, and I wish I did. But, my wife can attest to it. We were driving, or we were traveling, I should say, just last week. And, policy enforcers got behind us and got right up on us within less than a car lane's distance and stayed behind us for about 2 miles. I mean, she was shaking in her boots, but, I wasn't even almost worried. And, I mean, I've done a few things like put the sheriff on notice of my right to travel and, who I am and concerning these kind of issues. But, you know, excuse me, y'all. Always people hit me. But, where was I? Oh yeah, like I say, I've done a few things, to put these people on notice of who I am and that I know my rights. But it's not all about that. I think part of it is just handling, the test that you get when them lights come on in the first place. I can't attest to what everybody goes through, but the only two times that I've been stopped with my nationality card, it was the shortest stops I ever had in my life. And I wasn't violated in not even the slightest bit. I was in my wife's car. They made the claim, hey, you got a sticker out, or something like that there. No registration sticker or whatever it was. And, they even found, a backlight out, one of them things that, I guess after they initially saw that bad registration sticker, what they would call it, but I didn't get so much of as a warning. They mentioned them, but all I did was stay in my square and basically tell them, I know that I have the right to travel, and even pled the Fifth Amendment to certain lines of questioning concerning driver's license, because I don't drive. I don't operate in commerce on the road anymore. I haven't for about 2 years now, and I haven't had a driver's license for just as long. I don't participate in any state activities of that sort. You know, we we're trying to stay private as Moors, and that's just my current mode of operation. But I know Moors here in town that get pulled over, and you know they will give them the driver's license. Have given them the driver's license, and it's just all about knowing how to operate in contract. My best friend, he's an insurance agent and a Moore. So he works in his straw. And has no problem operating the contracts. If he gets stopped, from what he tells me, he hasn't been violated over bad stickers intentionally not updating them to see what will happen. But I mean, he'll tell an officer, when they ask for your driver's license, he'll give it to him and say, here, but it's not mine. You know, it's just all about how you talk to him. He'll give him a spiel along the line of, he is the registered owner of the said name on that ID, but it's state property. And not only does he not want it, he knows the law that if they ask for it, he has to give it to him and tell them, please don't give it back. So it's all about strategy, knowing when to talk and when to be quiet at times too. Or at least, from my experience with dealing with these policy officers, I haven't been violated, but I know a few more that have and got off. One of the Moors we work with, Aaron Bay, he is a fool when it comes to dealing with these cases. And there was a Moor from Mississippi that we did the nationality card for, and I turned him on to the Moor about, I don't remember what his case was, but the advice that my guy was given was so good that the Moor came all the way down to Texas from Mississippi to visit and really get that game. And shoot, I'm sorry I missed it. They didn't tell me he was in town because I'd have came out to see him. But I think they just attest to the level of work that we're doing down here, and it's really not in a public manner. Like, there are people way better than me, I'll say, at this Moore Science in town that would give a better public image. But it's just, we got to get this information out by any means necessary. And I may be doing some interviews with some of these guys too, because it's a lot of stuff that is not really being disseminated out here. So when it comes to all of these things, we're trying to just uplift all of humanity, and that's a lot of the reason that we're not on Front Street out here doing a mass ad campaign. It's not about making money for us. We're just trying to really help the people. Now, another frequently asked question I get is about filing paperwork. People always asking, do I file my name correction, my proclamation, this and that, here, there. I have a list. I hear people talking about, 7 main places. I have a list of 14 places I think that are good to put on notice. But I think it's more of on an individual basis of what you file where. I can see if you are filing with the state, let's say the Supreme Court, it may be good to put them on notice of your name correction and your proclamation, but they might not need every single piece of paperwork that you have to file with them. I like to throw in additional things here and there depending on who I'm filing with it and for what purpose. One thing that's good to throw in there is a copy of House Resolution 75 from 1933. And I just like that one because it best describes our situation as Moorish Americans here. It's not the best description, but as far as law, it's probably one of the best to describe the Moorish Americans here the way we operating now. But it's always, do they need to know or do they already know about this? Because I wouldn't necessarily send that one off to a local government agency that doesn't deal in things where it would be significant. Like, I wouldn't necessarily send that, maybe even to a job. If I'm sending them, a copy of information, because we help Moors out when they proclaim their nationality. They're trying to get rid of that straw man on and stop paying taxes. It may be more relevant for you to send the tax exempt affidavit as opposed to sending House Resolution 75 that just mentions that we're Moorish Americans and have religious rights and using our L's and our B's. And there's nothing wrong with that because I added to a lot of stuff. But the point is, you don't need to send every piece of paperwork everywhere. You don't need to file everything everywhere. And another question I get a lot is basically concerning recognition. When we send our filings off, I tell people to expect back the certified return receipt, and that's it. You know, if you send something to the president, whether it was Barack Obama or currently Trump, or you're sending to the Moroccan embassy or the Supreme Court or anywhere, I wouldn't expect to get back from them a certificate saying, we just officially put you on the record. We have your status. You're locked in. They're not going to give you any kind of recognition like that. It's not going to happen. I wouldn't almost expect that, people, and I'm not sure why, but a lot of people think, you're going to get something back from these people saying, okay, yes, you're a Moor now, and, you're all good. No, it doesn't work like that. You're going to put them on notice, and they're going to take notice and be very quiet about it. You may notice little things in your personal life changing. Things may get weird and suspicious, but don't worry about it because, once you put enough people on notice, make enough noise, and let people know that you know who you are and know your rights, they tend to back off. And, it may be a fight initially. It may be some small battles here and there until you really asserted your rights to the fact and to the point that they know, okay, leave this person alone because they know what they're talking about. And, we don't want to mess with them because there may be some consequences. And, that's the position we got to take as Moors is to be able to handle our business and let people know what's going on, who we are, and that we don't have a problem exerting our rights. Because if you don't know that you have rights, you don't know these rights to defend. So they'll just try and, take advantage of you. They'll molest you without an issue. And when you don't know to stand up for it, it's just nothing you can do. Let me see. I guess I'm gonna go one more. Status correction. People ask me all the time about proclaiming their nationality and status correction. Do I do this process? Do I do that process? And what I always say is there's no right or wrong way necessarily to proclaim your nationality. But there are legal steps that you do take to correct your status. You don't necessarily have to go through the process of when you do your name correction, sending it out to all these places like a lot of Moors do. But for uniformity, that's part of our process because it's something that Moors all over the country are doing. And just to be in uniform with these active Moors, we're showing, who we are and putting our paperwork out to these same places and running with pretty much the same paperwork as well. Because, people ask me, can I use this one or use that one? And my best answer is, anybody that can write up a legal document could write up this. There's no requirements of what's right and wrong. You could have a half a page document that says everything you need. to correct your status. We just go with the one that Moors are using uh, the most. That's more like a template for Moors around the country. So, you know, once you do that, get your nationality card, it's still a process. It's still contracts that we have to go back into and either learn to work in that contract or correct our status and standings in that contract. So that these things not an issue. All right. Well, looks like I got some business people and gotta handle that. That was baby calling. So gotta get on. And with that, people, I'm a yield the floor. Peace.